Boy howdy is it a day to be an NA player, because not only are we getting NA exclusive GSSR number 2, and maybe saying it's exclusive isn't the most accurate because they did say that the JP side would eventually get the startup banner. I'm sure they'll also get the second one, but hey, it's a W for us first. JP gets everything 2 years in advance. At least we're finally getting something on them, but we're also getting a very strong early update and another exclusive banner. So I mean, if you're someone that's trying to save their Saint Quartz, they are definitely trying to make it as hard as possible, not only with the banger reruns we've been getting, but also we have the Thanksgiving banner. Now we also have this that has a lot of very good servants on it. So this will be kind of a should you summon on this banner, because we just have so many gigantic banners coming our way that I got to make sure that I'm covering them for you guys. Now, obviously, before we get started, if you do not have Castoria, if you don't have Koyanskaya, if you don't have Oberon, those units are going to be coming out, or in the case of Castoria, are already out over here on the NA side of things, and I would prioritize that you go ahead and get them, because once you get your grubby little mitts on somebody like Castoria or Koyanskaya, you can effectively do whatever you want with Arts and Buster respectively. But if you've already got them, or maybe say you already have Castor and you're like, nah, ZTL, I'm going to be exactly like you on your JP account, where you've only got the Castoria, no Oberon, no Ruler Scotty, no Koyanskaya, I'm just going to be raw dogging it with Arts, then that's perfectly fine. This video is going to be for you and trying to find out what you want to go ahead and summon for. But I do not want this getting thrown under the rug. So effectively what this means is, instead of your command spells recharging one by one every 24 hours, you get them all back at reset. And I cannot stress how much of a nice update this is. If you're stuck on a particular node, or if you have something like, say, the most recent challenge quest that we had for the lottery, you know, and maybe you're one of those people that you have to use command spells to get by because your box just isn't up to snuff. Sometimes it can be hard to get those through those in a timely manner, because you got to effectively do them every 3 days because your box's not there. But this every 24 hours. It's not only good for those scenarios, but it's also really nice if, say, you're like me and you're trying to specifically use somebody for your dailies, but maybe they're not the best farmer, or you're doing a 90 plus, you're kind of farming casually like I'm doing right now on JP. I want to use Summer Ibuki, but she can't quite clear it consistently in 3 turns because, you know, I don't have like Oberon and all these other guys that are going to push her over the edge. So I can just use a command spell to refund her NP, and I can effectively get 3 extra runs a day by also still bonding up the servant that I want to bond up. It's just a very convenient thing to have, because obviously as a mechanic, command spells exist to be used, so why not put them to use? And this will be really good for not only new players, people that don't have boxes for certain challenge quest runs, or also if you just want to do farming with a servant that's not particularly good. Hey, you could use somebody that has no battery, no refund, and pop this on all 3 nodes. You know, Ryder, Astolfo, enjoyers, rejoice. But we're also getting 10 Saint Quartz. There's also a pretty dope thing for Strange Fake. But we also have the 20th anniversary banner that they're dropping over here. This is not the GSSR. This is actually a raid up. And there are some tantalizing servants on here, but I would say overall, you can skip this entire banner. There are, again, very, very strong units on here, but some of them are going to be returning sometime soon. And by sometime soon, I'd say maybe in like the next year, or they're just not going to be as worth compared to some of the major supports that we're going to be getting in the next couple of weeks, or compared to a lot of the DPSs we're going to be getting. But let's just start rolling into these, and I'll also let you guys know which ones are actually going to be insane in the future. Now, if you did not already get your free Artoria, she is really strong, but keep in mind she is on every single banner. So even if you didn't get her for the Fate's Day Night campaign, you could potentially just have her randomly show up into your summons, and you know, that'll be super dope. I mean, unfortunately for her as well, Arthur's also on this banner. Let me find where he's at. Yeah, Arthur recently got a buff over on the JP side of things that, in my opinion, makes him the best Buster AoE Saber, just kind of going in neutrally versus things, because, you know, super large isn't the most uncommon, but isn't exactly the most common thing. But what makes him the best is that he now has the battery to be able to farm, and he can stack his Buster buff because they let it be 3 turns. He doesn't really do that much damage, but when you let him stack it by waves 2 and 3 because of Koyanskaya's skills, that's 100% Buster up and 40% attack. He does monstrous damage just overnight with that buff. So if you're going to be going for an AoE Saber and you're wanting to go for more meta optimal reasons, Arthur would be the pick, but I would probably just tell you to wait for him to come back out after he gets his buff, because he is going to be kind of a dead paperweight until that happens. But hey, maybe you're looking at the next 2 years and you're like, oh no, around then I'm going to really need to start saving up all my Saint Quartz, so maybe this is a good point for me to go ahead and summon. You know, it's like those people that are like, nah, this is one of those periods where I just got a bunch of Saint Quartz and, you know, I can afford to blow it on some people, right? Because I'm not going to need to summon until, you know, next summer for something along those lines. You know, I would always advise you to save up for all those characters that you want, but I do understand the mentality. I did blow the rest of my Sancors on trying to get NP4 Castoria after all. Ishtar's in a very unfortunate boat. I think when I did the top 5 Buster AoE archers, she landed at number 4, and that's not because she's bad. FGO is one of those games where you can effectively use whoever you want if you invest enough into them, and Rin being a very popular character, I know if you want to use Ishtar, you're going to do everything in your power to make her usable. It's just, you know, she doesn't have power mods and stuff along those lines that can make her a little bit annoying in some of these 90++ nodes, but again, she's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's hard to be, you know, considered a bad servant when you have a 50% battery, the potential to pierce invincibility, and the potential to have an invincibility buff, and a very strong NP plus a pretty strong charisma, all things considered. Hard for her to be bad, just I don't think she's worth going for, but if you're a Rin simp, I know you're already going to be going onto this banner, but she can do Buster AoE farming for you. She's just not going to be as crazy as, say, somebody like Gilgamesh or Tesla, someone along those lines that have like the power mods to really stack up with the current meta. Ilia is very, very strong. I think she just does really good single target damage as a caster, plus they gave her a big fat battery, so if you need a large berserker, or berserker, if you know, we're going with the whole anniversary meme over here, or you need a really large assassin that you need to get deleted, Ilia is going to be your girl for that, if you don't already have somebody like Sanzo. Now, Sanzo can, again, like Artoria, appear on any banner. She does have a better battery, so she's a little bit easier to use, a little bit more flexible going into 90++ nodes, although 50% battery is also probably going to be able to get the job done, but suffice to say, she's definitely not bad. You know, if for whatever reason you're trying to go pull for Ilia, maybe you just want every single costume servant of the game, maybe you're just trying to collect at least one copy of every 5-star servant, she's not the worst. Definitely not worth going for, though. I would say Semiramis is in a very unfortunate position. I kind of broke this down in the GSSR video I did a couple of days ago, but she primarily focuses on debuffs, and the place that you want to be in right now as a Buster AoE servant, which she can't do the farming, I believe, it's just you want to have someone that can stack buffs, not stack debuffs, because usually you're not going to be in a position in any 90++ or 90+ node where you're going to be able to loop defense downs on people, unless for some reason they put out like a 6 million HP enemy or something. It's just one node, then hey, maybe somebody like Semiramis or these other debuff servants will be really good into those, but until we start getting those more consistently, she's going to be in kind of a bad spot. But again, not the worst servant, but definitely probably out of the group of them, probably the one that you would want to summon on the least, until we come to Amakusa over here. Amakusa has a kit where you look at it and it's very deceiving, right? You look at his kit and he would seem very insane, and this is also a fault of me as well, but the more and more that you use him, you realize he just doesn't really do the damage you would be expecting him to do. I think honestly, if they wanted to give him like a small good and evil power mod, or I guess, you know, lawful and chaotic, maybe something along those lines of even 50%, I think it would go a long way in helping him out. He's definitely more of like a challenge quest oriented AoE ruler, which is a little awkward, but still decent if you want to bring him there. Just do not be deceived by his kit. Bro does not do a whole lot of damage. Nero Caster over here, I personally love this servant. You know, I use her every time that I really can get the opportunity to. I have her at NP2, but because of how her third skill, I believe, is on like what, like a 7 or 8 turn cooldown, you can't double stack the 50% attack buff, which does hurt her a little bit. It leaves her wanting for a little bit of damage. So again, think of her as kind of like Ishtar over there, where you can definitely get some solid mileage out of her if you're wanting a Buster AoE servant to do farming for you, but until they either give her an upgrade that allows her to loop that attack buff a bit easier, or they give her a very strong power mod to kind of put her in line with current meta servants, she is going to be unfortunately lagging a bit behind. Tamamo is definitely worth summoning for. I do a lot of Tamamo propaganda on this channel because she is still very good. Do not be deceived that just because Castoria and Lady Avalon are very good, that makes Tamamo bad. If anything, Tamamo is as good as ever. She's really not aged a day, I don't think. She's just not particularly great for going into farming, but hey, even in those scenarios, you can use her as a plug suit option or a Chen Gong bullet if you need a little bit of extra damage. She's just very solid. The good thing about her, though, is that you don't have to go out of your way to summon for her. You can always just pick her up with a free 5-star ticket, as we now have, what, 2 of those that we've gotten? We got one for the 20 million and now the 30 million download campaign. I want to say there was another one, and someone in the comments down below can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I feel like we've gotten 3 total. But then again, that might just be my copium being like, oh, we got way more than we were expecting. But regardless, that's a ramble and a side tangent. She's very strong. I don't think worth summoning for because you could just pick her up for free. I kind of already outlined why I think Arthur is so strong. I would definitely say that as he is right now on the JP side of things, much like Iskandar down here, they're definitely worth summoning for, but you are going in for an investment. Now, Iskandar, I think, is a little bit easier to cope with because everybody loves Iskandar. Like, who didn't come out of Fate Zero being like, this guy is the absolute GOAT? So if you're willing to wait 2 years, you will go from kind of being one of the worst servants in the game to realistically one of the best. I mean, again, and it comes down to him just being an absolute monster when it comes to Buster AoE farming, while also being able to buff the entire team party's NP damage. He drops stars, gives him attack. The crit damage is also not nothing, considering that he can bomb a bunch of stars. So if you are more face card reliant, you almost have guaranteed crits going into the next wave, and those Buster crits are going to smack. Now, these last three, I think, are the ones that are the most worth summoning for. Voyager, Gilgamesh, and BB. And I'm not just saying that because Gilgamesh is my favorite character, but among all of these guys, they're definitely the best. Gilgamesh, I would implore you to maybe wait until we actually get the New Year's banner coming out if you really are trying to go in on Gilgamesh, because he will have MHXX, the foreigner from Summer 3, as his 4-star on his banner with the buffed 4-star rates, and she is a very, very strong single target art servant, definitely falling a little bit behind on the times with her kit, but her damage is still as top notch as ever. So getting her at a couple of higher NP copies as a consolation prize while also going for Gilgamesh, I think is a little bit better than trying to go over here, especially because they didn't chuck any of the story lock servants on here, which is a little bit annoying because, you know, you couldn't have just tossed us like a Saber Altar or something, give her an additional rate up. That might have tempted me to pull on one of these, but yeah, unfortunately, no such thing for that. I mean, Hark is there, but he's not exactly story locked, right? But definitely worth going for. He's just one of those servants that is never going to be bad, as one of the poster childs of the Fate franchise in general, really, or maybe just the poster child. I believe as of now, Gilgamesh has been in more Fate projects than just Artoria has, which is kind of ridiculous when you consider that it's like, oh, well, you know, Artoria is really not in something like CCC, or she's not really in Strange Fake as of yet. You know, she just kind of gets beaten out by Gilgamesh just being in more properties. I mean, even in FGO, technically, Artoria hasn't really had a main story appearance unless you count Castoria, who's kind of just a completely separate individual if you've read Lost Belt 6. So Gilgamesh, even as Caskill, you know, kind of acts very similarly, and he's supposed to also be kind of the same guy, but we're getting into semantics with that one. But regardless, very, very strong guy. As the poster child, dude will always be very strong. He's getting a buff this New Year's where he just becomes even better. He does just insane standard damage without any of his power mods, but then everybody knows that weak to Enema Elish is very, very powerful, as most servants fall under the category being weak to that. Summer BB, I kind of outlined why I think she was really good in the GSSR video. She's rocking one of, if not the most unique skills in the game, with that third skill being able to lock your cards. And sure, it might have a little bit of RNG if you're running into a boss fight, trying to turn it into a farming node, but hey, those are usually 5 AP, and you know, once you get the desired cards that you want, for my newer players, that's the cards that you start off with, like your Buster cards, your Arts cards, your Quick cards for whatever servants you have, you know, your random, you know, supports and your DPSs, right? You might have to reload a couple of times, or, you know, trying to get whatever the most optimal thing is, but it is definitely worth it, right? It's definitely super strong, and you don't even need to do all that. Usually you can kind of just make by with certain hands that you get. You don't need the most optimal one unless you're really trying to min turn something, and she can also be a decent Buster AoE farmer if you're looking for that. Finally, there's Voyager, who I think is kind of in a weird position because he's definitely one of the better quick loopers in the game, but since we got Dante's buff early, you know, that kind of puts him in a weird contentious point with him. And we did just get Senno Rikyu, who I do like. I don't know if I would say I like her more than Voyager, but man, her being an AoE berserker just does a lot. You can practically bring her wherever you want and she'll be able to get the job done. But don't let that mislead you that, you know, saying that he's not a good servant or worth rolling for, because with his buff, he definitely joins the ranks of some of those upper echelon loopers in being one of those guys you can kind of just bring anywhere. Although you do probably want to go ahead and try to get some additional copies of him if you want him to be your main looper. Maybe you're just really into space and you're like, you know what, I got to get that Voyager 1 probe to NP 2 or 3. If that's something you're willing to do, then by all means go pop off and get that guy. But I am hoping that this was short, sweet, and concise for you guys. If you were wondering, should I go summon on this banner or whatnot, I am trying to keep it as concise as possible before I also have to leave here in a couple of minutes. So I'm like, okay, got to do it for speed for myself, but also I don't want it to be like a 35-minute long video being like, all right, let me just waffle about these guys, because, you know, we've been through this song and dance before, you know, talking about some of these particular servants being like, okay, look, I know Ishtar's really popular, but is she worth rolling for? Probably not, unless you're a huge Ishtar simp, or, you know, like Gilgamesh, definitely very, very strong, but there are probably other servants worth more rolling on, unless you're like me and he's like one of your favorite servants, you want him to work. And then you got your investment servants like Arthur and Iskandar. But hopefully this is all short, sweet, and concise, and you guys can let me know in the comment section down below if you're like, now ZTL, this actually sucked, really. Like, this was the worst guide I've ever seen in my entire life. in which case, maybe I'll just come back and do it again. But I kid. With all that being said, let me know if you're going to be rolling on any of these individual banners. I highly advise, though, let me just reiterate this, that you save for Castoria, who's currently out right now, Koyenskaya or Oberon, who are going to be coming out. And then even then, I don't think any of these servants are really competing with the guys that we're going to be getting next year. You know, your Kukulkans, your Tets. You know, we also have Morgan 3, who's coming out. We have all of the summer servants being absolute bangers. I mean, even the side servants, people like Juan Gina or Pope Joanna, are very, very strong. I mean, they don't really get talked about because everybody else around them is so nutty, but they're not even that bad as servants. I mean, there's even Kenshin, who is like one of the best DPSs in the game, and you can also use her for farming, which I have done on JP. Thank the Lord that she is an art servant, so I can fit her into those team comps. But unless these are your favorite servants, I probably wouldn't roll on any of them. I mean, me personally, even being the huge Gil simp that I am, I'm like, okay, I already tried to go for the NP4 Castoria. Let me just hold my Saint Quartz for one of the more insane banners that we're going to be getting. But with all that being said, I'm going to stop yapping and rambling, and you guys have yourselves a nice rest of your day, and I'll catch y'all in the video tomorrow.